On a quiet winter morning in Colorado, a single question still lingers after nearly 3 decades. How could a child be killed inside her own home and no one ever be held accountable? Tonight, we revisit a case that refuses to fade from memory, no matter how much time passes. It was just after Christmas, a time meant for family, warmth, and celebration. Instead, it became the beginning of one of the most disturbing and debated criminal investigations in American history. The victim was 6 years old. Her name was JonBenét Ramsey. In December 1996, JonBenét lived with her parents and older brother in an affluent neighborhood of Boulder, Colorado. To outsiders, the family appeared successful and comfortable. JonBenét herself was known as a bright, energetic child, involved in school and activities, loved by those around her. No one could have imagined that her life would end so violently, inside the very house where she should have been safest. On the morning after Christmas, JonBenét was reported missing. A ransom note had been found inside the home, demanding money and warning against contacting authorities. Police arrived, and what followed would later be described as a cascade of missed opportunities, confusion, and irreversible mistakes. Hours later, JonBenét's body was discovered inside the house. The home, already filled with people moving through rooms, became a compromised crime scene. From that moment on, every decision would be questioned. Every action would be replayed, analyzed, and criticized. The investigation unfolded under an intense spotlight. News cameras surrounded the neighborhood. Reporters filled the streets. Speculation spread faster than verified facts. For the local police department, the pressure was immediate and overwhelming. For the community, the shock was deep and personal. Boulder was not accustomed to crimes of this nature. Residents recall the contrast between their quiet city and the sudden invasion of national attention. Some remember the streets filled with broadcast vans. Others recall children being warned not to speak to strangers, not to answer questions, not to approach cameras. As investigators worked the case, disagreements emerged. Was the crime committed by someone outside the family, an intruder who entered and left unnoticed? Or was it the result of something that happened within the home? These two theories would dominate discussions for years, dividing both experts and the public. The ransom note itself became a focal point. Its length, wording, and placement raised questions. Analysts debated whether it suggested planning or staging, desperation or calculation. Yet despite extensive examination, it did not provide clear answers. Forensic evidence offered hope, but also confusion. DNA material was found, but experts disagreed on its significance. Some argued it pointed toward an unknown individual. Others cautioned that the material could have come from innocent sources and should not be overstated. As technology advanced, expectations grew that science might finally resolve what traditional investigation could not. The handling of the early investigation remains one of the most criticized aspects of the case. The crime scene was not sealed promptly. Potential evidence was disturbed. Interviews were delayed. These missteps, acknowledged by officials in later years, fueled public doubt about whether justice was ever truly possible. In 1999, a grand jury was convened. Its work was conducted in secrecy as required by law. While it is known that the jury examined evidence and heard testimony, no charges were ultimately filed. The decision not to prosecute became another layer of controversy, leaving many to wonder what conclusions had been reached behind closed doors. Over time, the Ramsey family moved away from Boulder. The house where the crime occurred changed ownership. Its address was even altered, an attempt to restore privacy and distance from constant attention. To someone walking by today, it appears like any other home. Yet its history remains etched in public memory. Within the community, attitudes shifted. In the years immediately following the crime, emotions ran high. Conversations were frequent, opinions strong. But as time passed, many residents grew weary. For some, the case became something they preferred not to discuss, a painful chapter already exhausted. Others, however, never stopped thinking about JonBenét. Those who were children at the time remember fear and confusion. Parents remember locking doors more carefully. Teachers recall trying to protect students from the chaos unfolding outside their classrooms. There is also a quieter voice in this story, one that speaks about empathy and restraint. Many emphasize that beyond theories and debates, a real child lost her life. A family, regardless of public perception, was forever changed. The relentless attention, they say, turned tragedy into spectacle. In later years, official statements acknowledged that the case was not closed. Evidence was reviewed again. Materials were digitized. Cold case specialists were consulted. Authorities insisted that leads were still being followed, even if progress was slow and largely invisible to the public. At the same time, frustration persisted. Critics questioned why newer forensic techniques had not produced definitive results. Others asked whether earlier mistakes had already sealed the case's fate, making resolution impossible no matter how advanced the tools became. The case also raised broader questions about justice in America. How does wealth influence investigations, if at all? How should police balance transparency with accuracy under intense scrutiny? What responsibility does the media bear when covering crimes involving children? For Boulder, the legacy of the case is complex. Some residents say it rarely comes up in daily conversation. Newcomers may not even know it happened there. Yet memorials, anniversaries, and periodic updates ensure that the story never fully disappears. There is also a sense of unresolved tension, not just about who committed the crime, but about whether the system functioned as it should. Many believe that the truth, whatever it may be, is buried beneath years of missteps and noise. And then there is JonBenét herself. Over time, her name became shorthand for mystery and controversy. But those who knew her, even briefly, remind us that she was more than a case file. She was a child with routines, friendships, and a future that was taken away. As we look back nearly 30 years later, the JonBenét Ramsey case stands as a warning and a lesson. A warning about how quickly investigations can derail under pressure. A lesson about the lasting impact of unresolved violence on a community. Tonight, the question remains unanswered. Who was responsible and why has justice proven so elusive? Perhaps the more difficult question is what we, as a society, choose to remember. Do we focus only on suspicion and speculation? Or do we also remember the human cost behind the headlines? The case is still officially open. The files are still there. The hope, however faint, still exists that one day, clarity may replace doubt. Until then, JonBenét's story continues to echo, not just as a mystery, but as a reflection of our collective struggle with truth, patience, and compassion. What do you think about this case? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to like and subscribe so we can uncover more stories together. This content is compiled and analyzed based on publicly available information and open discussions.